Most operators at 200 to 400k a month level have never been told what I'm about to tell you. And once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. And the reason your ads stop scaling has almost nothing to do with your actual ads. Your ad account is not this like media buying exercise. It is a machine learning asset for your business. So these things that I've just mentioned here, these are two completely different things. And the moment you understand the difference, everything changes. And I'm gonna walk you through today the exact 3-stage signal system that takes an operation collecting $288,000 a month and then pushes it past the $1.17 million per month. The same offer, same niche, but different operating system underneath it. And let me show you that today. If you've been here before, you know how this works. We do not do surface level here. We do the math, we build the systems, and revenue becomes predictable or it simply does not count. And that is the standard on this channel. And if this is your first time, welcome, right? So you are about to see a breakdown on paid advertising that I would say most people pay 5 to 6 figures to sit in a room and hear, and I'm giving it to you right now for free. The only thing I ask is you pay close attention. So turn off your phone, close some tabs down, because this is built for operators doing around 200 to 500k a month, and I'm not gonna slow down and explain the basics here. So if you are at this level, you will be able to keep up. And one more thing, this video is definitely not a tip video. Let's just be clear. This is a full system with real numbers behind every single claim. And if this sounds like a lot, well, it is. That's the whole point of it. And that's why this all works. Now, before we get into it, what I'm about to show you is a fraction of what we build inside our clients' businesses. You will walk away today though with a full understanding of the systems. But if you want it installed, built for you or alongside you, there is a link in the description. Now, let me walk you through this in full detail. So let me set the scene here. We had a high ticket coaching operation. Cash collected was around 12k per deal, doing around 288k per month off a 120k in ad spend. Roughly about a 2.4x ROAS. So not bad, but not great. Like, they just existed, let's put it that way, in the nicest way possible. They were doing roughly 480 book calls per month, and that booked call was costing them $250 per call. Now, watch what happens to those 480 calls. See, the setter show rate was 55%. That means 264 show up. Already almost half the calendar is dead on arrival. And of those 264, 70% were handed off to a closer. That's 185 calls. And the closer show rate was 65%. So 120 people actually sit for a real conversation now with the business. And the close rate was sitting at 20%. That meant that 24 deals at 12k each was 288k cash it collected that month, minus the 120k spend, minus, let's say, the 28,800 in commissions, and minus the agency they had at the time was around $15,000, and that actually equates to $124,000 a month in gross profit. Now, that is the number everyone is trying to scale past. Now, here is what happens next. Every single time the operator sees 124,000 in profit, they start to think the answer is obvious, right? They think, let's just spend more. So they can push $200,000. So then they push $200,000 in the ad account, cost per call then spikes up, and then the show rate stays flat, and then the close rate just drops because the sales floor was never built for that volume. So 3 weeks later passes, and then they are like back exactly where they started because they scale it all back again, and you have this ongoing loop every single time. So that is the 300k ceiling, and the reason you hit it is simple. You try to scale your ads without scaling the system that the ads actually feeds into. See, the system rejects the volume. It is not a guess. It is just pure mathematics here. But here is what I really want you to understand is your ad account is a training environment. Every event, every creative, every lead that shows up or every lead that ghosts you is actually teaching Meta's algorithm what to optimize for. And you are feeding it absolute garbage signals, shallow creative, zero downstream data. You are paying money essentially to make the machine dumber. So sit with that for a second, because I want to make sure you clearly and very clearly understand that. So the question is, what changes the actual outcome? Well, that is what we have here, the 3-stage signal system. But how does that work? Well, how Meta actually decides is through 3 stages. So the first is retrieval system through Andromeda, the second is ranking through Gem, and the third is this auction. And I would say number 1 to 2 is actually where the game is won. But what happens is most operators stay on stage 3 and waste a bunch of time in this area. And I'd actually say with heart that this is where most operators waste their time. It maps directly, by the way, this to how Meta's algorithm actually makes decisions right now. Like not in 2021, not whatever course you took 3 to 4 or 5 years ago. Right now, today, this is what works. So most advertisers, what they'll do is they'll optimize for stage 3, and that is the auction. The bids, the budgets, the audience targeting, the campaign structure, they are fighting over the last 10%. So let me show you the other, what I call 90% here. When somebody opens Instagram or Facebook, 3 things happen. Stage 1, which is this retrieval. So this is Meta's engine called Andromeda now, narrows tens of millions of active ads to a few thousand candidates. If your ad does not get retrieved in this starting point, it never actually enters the auction, and your budget is pretty irrelevant at this point. Your bid is irrelevant, your campaign structure is irrelevant, you are not even in the game. Then we have stage 2, which is ranking. Meta's foundation model called GEM scores these candidates now that it's retrieved, and probability of their engagement, starts doing probability of their conversion, the expected value to you as the advertiser you would get, the expected value that the user gets from this experience. So GEM processes sequences of thousands of events per user. It is not a simple model. This is one of the most sophisticated prediction engines on the planet, and Meta have hold of it right now. And in stage 3 is the auction. And I would say top ranked ads here start competing. The bid and the budget decide on the winner. And this is the part that everybody seems to obsess over. And it is actually the part that genuinely matters the least. The 3-stage signal system aligns your entire operation with how the algorithm is actually making decisions right now. And there are 3 pillars. Each one maps to a stage. So the first stage is what we call creative entropy, and I need you to internalize this concept because it changes how you think about creative production entirely. And the second stage is signal architecture, and the third is the signal pace scaling. So what we're going to focus on right now is the creative entropy, and we will get onto these points in a second. So what Andromeda does, let's say you had 5 ads, right? And what it does is it distributes across all 5 ads, and it says, what is the direct audience pocket that we need to give? So creative entropy is essentially the measure of how genuinely different your creatives are from each other. Not the variations, not like different headlines on the same talking head, none of that. Genuinely different creative that gives Andromeda distinct vectors to find distinct audience segments. So that might sound complicated, but I can assure you it's not. Let me break it down. So here is the problem most people have. All their ads use exactly the same face, the same hooks, the same style, the same pain angle. And to the retrieval system on Meta, those essentially are just one creative with minor variations. So Andromeda finds the one that performs slightly better, and what it does is it just collapses all the spend in it. So let's say ad 1 gets all the spend, and then it starves all of these other ads, and you might have paid like for 20 creatives to be edited, and you're only now essentially running 1. And I can assure you probably don't even know it, and your media buyer or somebody on your team hasn't even told you. The fix here is what I call semantic clustering. Okay, so you design high entropy clusters where each cluster is a completely distinct psychological entry point into your market. There'll be 9 clusters. I'm going to walk you through each one. So here are your 9 clusters. And by the way, there is a lot more than 9, but we're going to just keep it nice and simple here today. So cluster number 1 is the identity call out. This is when you name the exact person in your creative, so specifically they feel like you are talking directly to them. So I'll give you an example. So like agency owners doing 40K a month with 12 retainer clients who are terrified of losing even one. That essentially, what I've just done there is an identity call out. And what it does is it repels everyone who does not see themselves in that bucket. That is the entire point. It's a specificness that is used as a filter. And the creative essentially becomes the targeting for Andromeda. And by the way, this can be applied across different niches with the same principle. So this identity call out for business coaching, that was the example I've just given you, but it shows up in fitness, real estate, SEO agency. You can say online PTs charging less than $200 per month, or agents doing 300K a year, CGCI, who should be working at 700K. Look, the specificness of this cluster is the creative itself. So what I'm saying essentially is you can have the same cluster type applied across different niches. So this just shows how the framework can adapt to different industries and locations and niches. Okay, so cluster number 2 is what I call the outcome first. This is where you lead with the result and not the process. Nobody cares about your methodology until they believe the result is actually real. So an example of this could be how online fitness coaches replace one-on-one clients with a group model that does $80,000 a month without adding hours. You are actually essentially selling the destination, which is the outcome. So the mechanism comes later in the funnel. Cluster 3 is pain first. So this is where you hit the nerve directly. An example of this is you launched your course to crickets and now you are sitting on 200 hours of content that nobody's buying. This works incredibly well for audiences that have a problem and are problem aware, but have not committed to a solution yet. They know something is broken, they just cannot name it. So it's a great one to hit them hard with, this pain first example. The next one is the mechanism reveal. This is where you pull back the specific curtain and show the system itself. So it's very different to the other clusters. An example could be a sales trainer doing a whiteboard breakdown of the exact full core architecture that turns a 15% close rate into a 30% close rate without changing the offer. This cluster here really attracts logical, analytical buyers who need to understand the how before they even consider buying or even booking a call with you. So this one's really good to get those sophisticated buyers. Now, cluster 5 is what we call social proof. This is before and after results, client transformations, hard evidence. Example of this could be like a real estate coaching program showing an agent who went from like 12 transactions a year to 41 in 14 months with the dashboard and the timeline visible. The cluster converts like skeptics here. So the people who need proof before they even click on the ad, this is the type of cluster that really hits them hard. Now, number 6 is the anti-pan. One of my favorites here is you challenge what they currently believe. So an example of this is a finance coach running an offer like budgeting will not make you rich, but here is why every budgeting influencer is giving you the wrong framework. You see, this in that industry is a pattern interrupt. It stops the scroll because it contradicts something the viewer assumed was true. This is incredibly powerful at grabbing attention in a crowded feed or in a crowded industry. The next is what I call cluster 7, the UGC run or the POV. And this is filmed like an IG story, TikTok, like raw and unpolished, and it's very opinion driven. So an example could be, we actually use this for a recruitment agency owner filming on their phone. So nice, easy, cheap production as well. But they use the example of this they used was every agency owner I talk to is terrified of raising their fees. Here is why you are actually losing money by staying cheap. Now, this works because it feels native to the platform. It does not trigger that ad filter that everybody has or somebody might have in their brain. And then they engage with it before they even realize it's an ad. And then next thing you know, they've clicked and now they're in your funnel. And then cluster 8 is the cinematic lifestyle, B-roll heavy, voiceover narrative style, high production feel sort of ad. Example is like a high ticket consultant or a B2B industry walking through a client's office, showing the operation they help build, an aerial shot of the city, their office, the client, clean boardroom strategy sessions. This cluster does not hard sell. This creates environment that the buyer wants to be a part of. It's almost like when you sell lifestyle instead of the actual program. And it builds what we call brand equity and positions you as a premium option in your space if you do it in a classy way. Now, cluster 9 is our final cluster, is the story driven. Not many people use this, but it's exceptionally good. It's your personal origin narrative. So an example is like, I got fired from my marketing job and I took 3 freelance e-com clients to pay my rent. Because of that, I then accidentally built a $2 million agency in 18 months. And here is exactly what I learned. You see, this cluster here answers the questions that every silent buyer has been thinking of and wants to ask you, and that is, why does this person exist and why should I even trust them over everyone else? Story creates connection, right? And then the connection is what turns the viewer into a buyer. So Meta has different motivators unlocking new audiences based on all these different clusters, okay? So what I want you to understand is every cluster will actually attract a new subsegment. The targeting is now in the creative. Each cluster gets 3 to 5 variations per cluster, and that will give you around 25 to 45 creatives total from all 9 of these specific clusters. And here's the key insight from Meta's own research, by the way. Different motivators will unlock new audiences around 89% of the time. So you are not targeting manually anymore for any of this. This is what we call creative segmentation. And And Andromeda figures out who responds to what, and your job is now just quite simply to have enough creative entropy in your protocol to like allow it to do its work. Now, what's the ongoing cadence of like creative now? So on a weekly basis, right, I would say you would want 2 to 4 new creatives every week, okay? And new hooks and new angles and on proven clusters, okay? And then on a monthly basis, what you want to do is have around 1 to 2 entirely new clusters being added based on what your sales team is hearing on the calls. Now, here is something most people have no idea exists. Meta is actually rolling out a creative similarity score, and maybe by the time you're watching this, it's already out, but this matters, right? Because the system uses Andromeda's pattern matching to flag ads it treats as functionally identical. So 2 ads can be flagged as similar, even with different scripts, with different text and different people on camera, but if they share the same background, the same composition, the same color, the same palette, okay? The same palette, the same camera angle. When ads get flagged, they compete for the same delivery pool. And what happens is your budget then will just collapse into whichever it believes is performing marginally better, and the other one gets nothing. So essentially, if all these things are true, then they are going to get bucketed the same. So ad A might just say, oh, well, this one's performing ever so slightly better, so let's just put more budget in this, and it just collapses all the other ads. And the other ads essentially just get starved. So how do I fix this? Well, the fix is this. You need to change at least 2 of these dimensions here. So the face, the environment, the angle, the new hook structure, and new format is the only way you can get around it. And what you want to do is be checking for similarity signals weekly. If 2 ads get flagged, and the way you know this is by budget, is pause one or make the other meaningfully distinct, okay? New setting, new hook structure, new format. The goal is not small iterations anymore. Let's just swap out the hook. It is genuinely different creative that is essential here to get out of this creative entropy or low creative entropy state. The next pillar to all of this work is, as mentioned, is stage 2, which is signal architecture. This is the one that I would say that would separate most people who scale from the people who stall, because this is about what you are teaching the algorithm about your business. And right now, right at this point in time, most of you are not teaching it anything useful. I'm pretty sure of it, because think about it this way. GEM does not just track whether someone converted. It models the entire sequence of behavior. Every single iteration and interaction, every event, every step someone takes through your funnel is training data. So the question is very simple. Are you engineering what GEM wants to learn? Or is it just learning by accident from like the little work that you've already done? And I already know the answer, by the way, to that question for most of you, because most operators at this level, what they essentially do, they run their entire funnel with a pixel that fires maybe like 2 events. A page view or a lead event, and that is it. You are giving a system that processes thousands of events per user exactly maybe just like 1 or 2 data points, and expecting it to go out and find you specifically, you, a $12,000 buyer for your funnel. Run that logic in your head. 2 data points, $12,000 buyers. It does not work. Not because the system is broken, because you gave it nothing to work with, okay? Signal architecture fixes all of this. You build a complete chain so the algorithm can distinguish between someone who filled out a form at 2 a.m. and someone who is actually progressing towards a sale. And if you've been in this space a while, you know they are 2 very different people that do those 2 different behaviors. The algorithm needs to know that. The algorithm needs to know that difference also. It can't just be you that sees it. So here is what I call the event chain or the event taxonomy. 6 events. View content is the first. This is where somebody lands on the landing page or views a VSL. We have lead. This is where they put initial opt-in or start an application. We have submit application, which could be a full application submission. And then we have schedule, which is a calendar event that is created. These 4, by the way, here are probably the standard that most people do, and then they just stop there. But do not stop there. Do not be that guy. Event 5 here and event 6. So event 5 is show up. And this is a custom event through offline conversions. So when someone actually attends the call, not books, attends the call. And then number 6 is closed won, and this fires when the deal closes with the actual revenue value attached. The real number, not a placeholder. Events 5 and 6 here separate you from every competitor in your space. You are essentially telling the algorithm who shows up, who buys, and what they are worth to you as a business owner. Everyone else in your space is guessing when they don't have these, and you are giving it the answer key that it needs. So now let me explain why this changes changes everything. When you upload offline conversions for show ups and close deals with your revenue attached, you are telling Gem this sequence of behavior combined with these creatives, combined with this full funnel, leads to real tangible cash in the bank for our business. Not just the form fills, real revenue. The system starts then biasing towards those creative clusters that we've now done and user types that produce these outcomes of making you cash. It stops finding you cheap leads and it essentially starts finding you buyers, which is a different machine built entirely, and that's what we're doing here in this video. Which then leads me on to the Gem signal loop, and this is to help you understand how this all works. So essentially, the Gem signal loop is this: creative entropy feeds diverse creators into Andromeda so it can retrieve it. Those diverse users then engage with these different cluster types that are here, and what that essentially does is this: qualified leads then progress and sequence of events fire at each step in this whole sales journey. Then offline conversions upload show-ups and close deals with revenue back to the ad account, which then lets Gem learn these new patterns and find real buyers. What essentially happens is retrieval biases towards better creative clusters and user types, and this cycle then repeats and compounds. So because the cycle compounds, this is not a one-time like upload sort of thing. This is an ongoing signal loop. There are 3 implementation options here that you have to do this. So a manual CSV upload through Events Manager, that can be done on a weekly basis minimum. That is what I call the baseline. The CRM integration through Zapier or Make, that fires when statuses change. That gives you daily sync, let's say. Or Conversion API, which is server-side events in real time. That server-side is probably the gold standard you want to achieve here. But start with option 1 if you're confused. It's the easiest one to implement, and then graduate to the 3. And just to be clear, there is also a quality score for this, which is what they call the event match quality, the EMQ, and it goes from 1 to 10. It's right in the Events Manager in Business Manager, and it tells you how well Meta can match your offline events to real users. And your target here is actually to be at a minimum of a 6, but the goal is you want to be above an 8. Okay, to do this, you want to pass more customer parameters like their email, their phone, their name, all hash back to the ad account, back to Events Manager, and consistent formatting everywhere. CAPI implemented properly as a primary signal channel, not as the pixel backup, okay? But you still want the pixel there, but you want CAPI firing at the same time. Now, there is a volume problem you need to understand. Gem needs conversion data to learn patterns. So if you sell a $12,000 offer, you might close 20 to 30 deals a month. And that was essentially not enough data for the algorithm to build reliable patterns around closed deals alone. The fix for this is what I call event stacking. You optimize for higher volume events like schedule or lead to give the algorithm 100 plus data points to work with. But what you essentially do is you optimize for like one of these, then all the downstream events here all still fire simultaneously. Show up, the close one with revenue. They do not need to be your optimization event. They are just contextual signals, and Gem uses all of them in its sequence modeling, not just the one you are optimizing, let's say in your ad set. You still want all these to give the signals and give the journey to Gem. So the last layer of this is the semantic spine. This is one document that every single ad, every landing page, every VSL, every form question, every calendar, every setter script, every single thing pulls from this one document. And here's why it matters. So if your ad says one thing and then your landing page shifts the language and then your VSL shifts it again, and then your setter uses different terminology on the phone, every inconsistency is conflicting signal, and Gem cannot build a clean pattern of who your buyer is because you keep changing the description at every step, and every event that fires has got like different metrics because there's so many variables changes. So you want to try and keep it all very similar. So the semantic spine aligns everything. It aligns the ad copy, the landing page, the VSL content, the form questions, the calendar page, the setter script, the closer script, and they all connect to the semantic spine through that one document. Same ICP identity, same promise, same mechanism, same proof every single place. So Gem learns one clean pattern, and these users who respond to this language in the semantic spine take these actions and are the advertiser's buyers. So what does signal architecture actually do to the numbers? And I'm going to tell you now, it does everything. Show rates improve because the algorithm finds higher intent people. Close rates will improve because The people on calls match the profile that Jem was trained on. AOV, but real AOV by the way, average order value, goes up because buyers found through a stronger signal pattern commit to larger packages and drop more cash. So the signal architecture metrics all get what we call a delta uplift because of this. So in our model, we had the set show rate of 55%, that went to 72. The handoff was 70, that went to 78%. 65% on the closer show rate went to 80%, 20% closed to 28, and 12K to 14K. Nothing changed about the offer. What changed is what the algorithm knows about your buyers now. And this is when your team starts saying, oh man, like the lead quality this week has been really good. And this is all down to this sort of stuff here. And you can keep it ongoing and keep it compounding if you keep it under control. So essentially all of this has got a delta increase of around 17 points, 8 points, 15 points, 8 points, and then obviously there's a 2K increase in average order value. And I'm going to explain how that actually happens in a minute. But now I want to talk to you about the signal pace scaling. But there is two paths to this. There's an aggressive path and a signal pace path. You want to be on path B, ladies and gentlemen. That's where you want to be. So path A is 50% budget increases is what you're doing in your ad account. Learning then reset, CPM spikes, panic scale back because you shit yourself, and then you're back to square one. This is what most of you are doing, and it's because you're trying to aggressively scale, which I understand, and we all want to do this, but plan, be a business owner, plan in days and months and weeks rather than just going tomorrow I'm going to do this. But signal pace scaling is essentially equal to what I call compound growth. That's what it equals to. And this is the third pillar. This prevents you from destroying everything you just built. So most operators scale like they are slamming the accelerator, like on path A in a cold engine. They're like trying to increase 30, 40, 50% budget jumps in a single day. The cost per lead then spikes the fuck up and the sales floor then just drowns every single time. Here is why you get that complete mess up in your ad account. In the Andromeda era, large budget jumps reset the algorithm's learning phase. So the system then has to go and discover patterns it already knew. This is not a metaphor. I want to be clear. This is not a metaphor. That is the infrastructure here. So every single aggressive move on budget change that you do deletes some of the machine's memory is the way you can look at it. All of that signal data you spend weeks building, slowly scaling up, you just wiped a chunk of it because you were impatient and you couldn't fucking plan properly. So what you want to actually be doing is not being aggressive. You want to be doing path B, the signal pace scaling. And this follows some specific rules. So a maximum of 15 to 20% budget increases per step. If you've got a cold, volatile account, drop that to 10 to 15%. Wait 3 to 5 days between these increases, okay? And if performance degrades, well then you just want to revert, wait a little longer, be a bit patient. Simple rules, right? But these are all actually very difficult to follow when you want results yesterday. But before you touch budget, there are 4 readiness signals that must be green. And what these are is cost per lead needs to be stable or improving for 7+ days. You need 30+ conversions per week. You need frequency below 2.5 and your CTR stable and not declining. Any one of these are in the red, you do not scale and you hold. This is not being conservative. This is how you protect the machine and make the learning asset that took weeks to train and look after it and cradle it like a little baby, because that's your little pixel you want to look after. The second layer to all of this on scaling and the budgets is you want to pace your budget to your sales calendar. I see this so many times. If your closers do not take calls on weekends, but they should be, by the way, because we see high conversion rates on weekends. But what we're essentially saying here is that every lead that books on Saturday, Sunday, and your closers don't work those days, actually will flood the calendar on Monday and Tuesday. And that creates a spike and a starve on your sales floor. So the fix for this is increase budget midweek so volume flows into Wednesday and Thursday and Friday when your team is staffed. Reduce slightly before the weekend. And a lot of you guys are doing it in reverse. The budget rhythm needs to match the sales rhythm if you want to do it in that way. So look, I just want to strip all emotionality of it and just run the compound math, right? If you do a 20% weekly growth on ad spend, okay, it does not feel aggressive at first, but that 4K that you're initially spending becomes 6.6K very quickly after 4 weeks. And that 6 0.6k becomes 10.9k after 8. And that is how you go from these 120k ad spends to 200k without like completely shitting the brick on the system. So you're probably thinking, Eros, yeah, this all sounds great, but like, oh, it's not very specific enough. Oh, I don't really understand like what metrics and stuff I need to be pissing about with. Well, this is why I've got you covered, right? We got guardrails and we have a lot of these in our program, but you need them essentially. So if CPL exceeds 1.5 times your target for 3 consecutive days, you need to pause the worst creatives and check your funnel. Do not touch everything. If CTR drops 40% versus the prior 7 days, that is creative fatigue. Rotate clusters from your surplus. And if the CPM spikes, but the CTR is stable, then that is competition or seasonality. And these are patterns and guardrails that we have to follow and abide. But these are what you want to investigate before you start reacting and start doing stupid shit in your ad account because you're panicking for whatever reason. So every single guardrail has an action, and there are loads of guardrails that we can give you, but I'm sure this video will be like hours and hours long. So let's just run the math now, because I want to run the full math with you in all its in detail and entirety. All 3 stages that I've just given you now working together and operating in a congruency. This is not about the single lever or single stage, right? It's about the compound effect. So let me show you, okay? Because this doesn't happen overnight, but it's a great example that we can build out live together here. So before, you might have been spending 120k on ad spend, 480 book calls at $250 with 55% setter show rate, which means 264 people actually showed. 70% handoff, which actually means 185 were handed off to the closer. And out of that 185 that were handed to the closer, 65% actually showed up to the closer, which means it roughly is around 120 booked calls that showed. And 20% close equates to 24 deals done, which if you are having on a 12k cash collected AOV, that's 24 deals at 12k each. That is 288k cash collected on a monthly basis, which works out on gross profit about 2.4x ROAS. Remember this number that I'm about to give you, by the way, $600 every calendar call that is generated. This is essentially every call on the calendar is generating them around $600. And I want you to remember that and hold on to that for a second. After all 3 stages were deployed, we come over to here. So we actually had 200k ad spend, which is a 66% increase, or 66.7 roughly, which actually equates to 667 booked calls. And the cost per book call was $300. So yes, it actually did go up by around $50. But like, do not react to that yet, because if you do, you're operating on an old mentality. Watch how the downstream metrics have an effect. So the setter show rate went to 72%. That means 480 people showed, which we went from 264 to 480. So that's almost doubled setter utilization just by changing who the algorithm sends us and also the extra ad spend. And then the handoff was 78%. So that's 374 now to the closer. And the closer show rate went up to 80% because of all this, because we were getting better quality people. So that's around about 299 calls that actually would show. And then finally, the close rate went from 20% all the way to 28%, which equated all these downstream metrics now equated to 84 deals closed. And the AOV, ladies and gentlemen, went to 14K from the 12. Not because we changed the offer, because we found through stronger signal patterns who commit to larger revenue drops and cash collected drops on the calls. And this is the thing that really gets me going here, is the fact, because of all of this, cash collected went to 1.176 million a month, and because of that, 5.88x ROAS. So a completely different game. And the gross profit was $838,400. Annualized, that's roughly $10 million, up from a 1.49 million that would have been over here, which is nowhere near the same. But remember this $600 I told you to hold on to, right? This is why I wanted you to hold on to it, because here is the number that tells the real story. It's the dollar per booked call. This metric is one of the most important, because before it's 600 and after it was $1,763. That is a 194% increase. Every call on the calendar is now almost worth triple. And the cost per call went up only $50, but the value per call went up $1,163. That is the math that nobody is doing. They see the cost per call increase and then they panic and shit themselves and they scale back and they never see what happens on the other side. So you see the cost per call call increased by $50, but the call went up in value by $1,163. Do you see, this is the math that nobody does. They never see what happens on the other side because they don't stay there long enough. But here is what actually happens and what makes this all one big hell of a moat, okay? A 6-month-old ad account with proper signal architecture will always outperform a brand new competitor regardless of budget, even if they come in with a big ass budget. The retrieval models have learned that accounts conversion patterns, and now it's just going to prioritize it. Every closed deal, every show up, every sequence event is training data, and that makes the next month better than the last. You see, your competitor cannot buy that. They cannot copy it. They would have to build it from scratch and know this from scratch and then also spend alongside it. And that is not a tactic. That is an asset, okay? And that's what makes this a moat if you apply it now rather than trying to apply it in like 7-8 months time because you don't think it's a priority. So here's the thing, right? These are the 3 mistakes that keep operators under 300K. At least one of these will be familiar to you, I can assure you. So mistake number 1 is optimizing for stage 3 while ignoring stage 1 and 2. You are adjusting bids, testing audiences, duplicating ad sets, and none of it fucking matters if Andromeda is not retrieving your ads because your creative entropy is too low. And you should know what that word means now. So stop fighting the auction, just feed the retrieval engine, okay? Number 2 mistake is running a 2-event pixel on a 6-figure ad account. You're just running view content and lead and maybe a submit application. That is all Gem knows about your business. It has no idea who shows up, who closes, who pays in full. You are spending 100K a month on an algorithm you are actively keeping blind and just literally covering it up and saying, no, we don't want to see it. You don't want you to see anything. So upload your offline conversions, man. Build the event taxonomy. This is the most underutilized lever in high ticket advertising, and it's just sitting there. And we actually stole this from our corporate clients that were spending millions and millions on ads a month, and this was essential from all the market research from fucking McKinsey. So grab that lever and just fucking put it in Accelerate, man. Mistake number 3 is semantic fragmentation. So your ad says one thing, the landing page says another, the VSL shifts again in language, the setter says something completely fucking different. Every inconsistency is literally a conflicting signal here. And Gem, you know our little friend Gem from Meta, cannot learn who your buyer is because you keep changing the description. So build that semantic spine with all the different ad copy and the landing page and everything being the same as that one semantic spine document that everything now pulls from. So you just saw literally the full 3-stage signal system, the creative entropy, signal architecture, and the signal pace scaling. 288K to 1.176 million, 124K profit to 838K. Every single number verified here with you today. And I'll be straight with you. This is, I would say, around 10 to 15% of what we actually deploy. The full system has way more cluster maps, production cadences, similarity auditing, RFM scoring, CAPI guides, CRM workflows, event taxonomy templates, semantic spine builders, guardrail triggers, because there is a lot of guardrail triggers, by the way, readiness checklists, week by week projections. So there is a lot that's not here, but like this is a long ass video as it is, man. So if you are doing 200K to 500K a month and you want this built into your operation, the link is in the description. Easy as that. We'll talk about whether it actually makes sense for your business because it might not be for you specifically. But if so, great. Let's just move straight on. So what I want to give you right now is actually an implementation plan and timeline for this. This is for those if you want to start building this yourself. Here is the order. But please do not skip ahead the sequence because the order of this matters and you will cock this up. And I am not taking any responsibility for what you do here after on. Weeks 1 to 2 is signal architecture, okay? And this is the foundation, right? So this is Pixel, browser pixel plus CAPI installed properly. All 6 events defined and tested. Offline conversion uploads for show up and closed one with the revenue values going in back into the event manager. This can be done, like I said, with weekly manual CSV at minimum, or you do a CRM integration for daily sync if you can and you have that ability, and then build your semantic spine. This is one reference document. And what you want to be doing is checking your EMQ, your event match quality in events manager in business manager. And your target targeting, remember, for a 6 minimum and 8 plus to be in the perfect world scenario. Weeks 2 to 4 is creative entropy. So map your 9 clusters with specific angles for your offer. And then you want to film 3 to 5 per cluster, which gives you about 25 to 45 creatives total. But when you do this, remember, diversify format, length, face, hook type, you name it. You need to make sure this is all in place and build a surplus, man, of 10 to 15 creators beyond what is live, because you want to like put that in the bank. And then you want to write 5 copy variations with 5 headlines per ad. And that is your ammunition to get going with this. Then week 4 onwards is the signal pace scaling. So remember, we had 4 readiness signals that need to be green before any budget change happen. A maximum of 20% per step. And remember, 3 to 5 days between changes so you can let it recalibrate. The budget pace to sales calendar is important, and the guardrails triggers need to be set. And then from this point onwards, you just need to monitor the signal loop. So are the offline conversions uploading? Is the event match quality holding up? Is the best creative clusters getting the retrieval priority from stage 1 from Andromeda? That is the ongoing rhythm and cadence that you need to be going on weeks 4 onwards with the signal pacing. And the expected timeline for this and the impact is around 60 to 90 days, but signal architecture shows results within the first 2 to 3 weeks, as when Gem starts receiving this richer data. Okay, creative entropy takes 3 to 4 weeks as Andromeda learns your new creative pool. Signal pace scaling will actually just compound over time. So the real inflection point comes from around the 60-day mark, all right? If you want to start seeing some tangible results with all 3 stages feeding into each other in this one big continuous signal loop with it compounds. And the budget for all of this, like realistically, you need 3 to 5K for about creative production day. And then the CAPI and the CRM integration is just operational cost, not ad spend, right? So everything else is configuration. The real scaling capital, though, comes from the profits that this system will generate you. So let me recap the whole thing. So stage 1, creative entropy, 25 to 45 creatives across 9 semantic clusters, 2 to 4 new weekly ones, and the similarity monitoring, creative surplus in the bank to like add more in the rotation. Stage 2 is signal architecture. This is the 6 event taxonomy through closed 1 with revenue and like the show up stuff and the offline conversion uploads. We have a semantic spine across every single touch point, and scroll back if you can't remember what those are. And then you want a gem to have a signal loop that is compounding on a monthly basis. And then stage 3 is the signal pace scaling. And this is 20% max increases, 3 to 5 day intervals between that, 4 readiness signals, budget match to sales calendar, the guardrail triggers. And remember the math here, it was 288K cash to 1.17 million, 124K profit to 838K, and the ROAS increased from 2.4 to 5.88x. And this is all from just treating your ad account now as a machine learning asset instead of a media buying exercise and just slapping it around like it's a little bitch. So link in the description if you want the full system built into your business. If you are not there yet, don't worry, just subscribe to the channel. Every video on this channel is going to be literally designed to get you thinking at the level above where you are right now. So if you like it, give it a like, drop a comment if something hit hard here, and pretty much all I can say is go out there, implement this, and go make some fucking cash.